Okay, extended, deleted, or alternative scenes from part 3. So, yeah, part 3 had a lot of things cut from it. At this point, the like producers or the censorship board, I don't quite know what they're called, but whoever it is in America really did not like these films. They were causing a lot of uh, I can't think of any other word but hullabaloo. Um, and essentially in America, especially, all these kind of parents were freaking out. Our kids are going to become murderers, blah 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 blah. So the censorship board really, really cracked down hard on these films. This is kind of the era, if anyone's watched Stranger Things, of like the satanic panic. Like D&D and and all these sort of satanic games are going to just make your kid this some sort of evil Satan worshipping monster. Um, a bizarre kind of occurrence, but I guess it happens with everything. In this case, they cut a lot from part 3. A lot of the best scenes as well, and tragically, like a lot of them are lost. A lot of them, I think they either burnt or just have been lost to time. There are these scenes, these kills that when you watch part 3, it's missing a bit of flavour. You're watching it and you're thinking, I'm here for some fun, old slasher, classic slasher. Where's the slashing? Where's the blood? Where's the bit that makes you go, ugh, right? No, it's not there. The only thing that makes you go, ugh, is the weird 3D attempts that they have. It's meant to be a 3D film, and it's in that era where they then understood that to be just throw things at the camera. I guess that makes you go, whoa, right? Right? I don't know. Um, but yeah, the weird thing about that was that the 3D was really like inane objects. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically, like it'd be like a doorknob would come woo, or like a broom handle would just be like woo. Why? Why that stuff? It was never anything like particularly scary. Maybe it was once or twice. But what was I talking about? Deleted stuff, yeah. So a lot of the kills were cut, a lot of the kind of effects were removed, depending on where you were. I think I remember reading that Norway was just chill with all of it, but the other countries, the rest of them that aren't Norway, all kind of cut something. And so it's a bit of a shame. The interesting thing, though, is that there were also a lot of alternative scenes, a lot of scenes that included things like Jason's stepdad or Jason's stepdad. Yeah, no, I can't really remember many of the alternative scenes. Um, but look, the point is, it's just a bit sad that we've lost them, basically. Moving forward, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. I've already talked about this. I got ahead of myself. This is a comic, came out in, I don't know, 2007, I think, was what I saw. Yeah, and it is not confirmed to be canonical. I don't think it is, but a lot of people, myself included, like to just say it is, because it's fun, and it doesn't mess with too many things. And it leads to a lot of quite interesting developments, and Jason in this is like, I'm pretty sure he dies again, but he gets told by his mum, this voice of his mum, that he's gonna come back, and this relates then to like a bunch of other theories. For example, that this remake was actually a sequel, and actually looking at it, that's right below what I'm talking about. I'll get onto that later then. Yeah, so it was a really good comic, and that's what I'm told, because I have never read it. I never got to read it. I really need to get around to reading it, because I'm assuming it'll be online somewhere, right? But if you want a physical edition, that shit is like 100 quid. I don't know how much it was selling for at the time, but it's 100 quid now everywhere I look. I would love a copy of this comic, but I cannot get one because I have no money. So for now, I guess I'll try and read the online version, but I have heard a lot about this. It's a very popular one of the better comics I've heard. Next up is Savini Jason. If you remember, Savini is the fella, Tom Savini. I couldn't remember his first name for some reason. Yeah, he's the fella who does all the practical effects and blah de blah de blah. Anyway, he designed, I believe he designed a Jason skin, a character in the video game. I'll probably edit in a photo now, and it looks really cool. It just looks awesome. And so thank you to Tom Savini for that. Next up, Jason can run and still runs. Yeah, okay, so this is an interesting one. I'm trying to figure out what this means, um, because essentially Jason in all of the films up to, I don't know, probably the 2009. Yeah, he doesn't run. He never really runs unless you count when he's possessing people in part 9. And in part 5 he might jog. I think the most you'll ever see is him sort of jogging. But he never runs, and so he's always sort of plodding around, and people are asking, does he have to? Is he unable to run, or is this sort of just like what's his motivation for not running? In in the 2009 remake, it is clear that he can run because he just sprints around the place, and I love it. I love that he can run in that one. I want them to keep that for future reference. But this theory, I suppose, is that he could run essentially in those last films, or earlier films, I should say. And what that means is he's walking intentionally, and it raises quite a few questions, doesn't it? Why is he walking? Is he a bit dim, right? There are suggestions that he's very malformed and mentally handicapped, essentially. But it also might be, and the theory I quite like is that he's just he's playing with people. He's messing around. He essentially is so messed up that he's taking a pleasure in slowly stalking and hunting these people. He can run, but he just wants to meander, freak people out, and it makes him a bit more scary, in my opinion, because these films in the modern day, they aren't actually that scary. A few jump scares will probably get you, but not much else. And there's one bit in particular I want to say in part 3 where he kills someone down by the docks, and then he kind of just saunters away. It's really quite cute. I really like that, and I like to think that at the in these first films he's just walking because he knows he's this like unkillable monster man, and that's why he just walks. But he can run. Yeah, I like that idea. I like to think he can, because if he can't, that's just a bit weird. Why can't he? Also, how did he survive? Maybe he just left traps. I don't know. I like to think he can run. On to the next part. Friday the 13th, 2009 is a sequel. Yeah, so it's not. Canonically, it's a remake. It was meant to be like it was in that era of reboots for horror franchises, and I actually really like this theory though, that it isn't a remake, it's instead a sequel. To explain further, essentially, I gotta stop saying essentially. The 2009 remake takes place right after the first film ends. It sort of shows it in a beginning sequence, but it's quite different to how it was in that film. They've remade it, and it's the protagonist cutting off the head of Pamela Voorhees, and it shows Jason seeing it. Apparently he was just kind of chilling in the bushes, and he sees it and he freaks out, and then it fast forwards and he's just he's living in, it's 2009, and in this case, unlike with the timeline messing up previously, it is clearly filmed in 2009, and the characters, you first see, it's quite long actually. You get this whole long intro where all these characters come and Jason just butchers them all brutally, and then the actual protagonists appear. I quite liked that. Yeah, but the theory that it's a sequel is because it essentially is saying that thing you saw at the beginning was Jason's memory, right? It wasn't like recapping what happened in the first and rebooting it. It was just saying this is what Jason has replaying in his head, and the reason for that is because it's very different, again, like I said, to what actually happened in the first film. So it's kind of this distorted perspective. And there are other reasons why people think it might be a sequel, that being that, first off, he has a hockey mask, right? Where did he get it? And why does he have this proclivity to it? And I believe, that it's implied that then it must be because these other films have happened. Some people put it kind of in between 7 and 8. Others, did I say 7 and 8? I meant 8 and 9. Others, genuinely canonically, like it's the latest one. And I'd say that one has the most backing, because the suggestion is, right, he gets resurrected again after Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. He looks a lot like he did in part 6, right? And that's the one where he comes back to life. So it implies that either it takes place shortly after part 6, or it takes place, where he's been resurrected again. And in the tunnels underneath where Jason kind of just scurries about, you can see a wheelchair with this jumper on it, and that's a reference to part 2 or 3, where this guy in a wheelchair, I think his name is Mark, he gets killed, and it looks like Jason has kept his wheelchair and his sweater, and he's put it down there, and if that's the case, then this has I think it's actually just a reference, like the filmmakers meant it to be a little reference. But what it is in my mind is showing that these previous films have happened. The final kind of convincing evidence for this being the case is that Jason is so much more active in this one. He sets traps, he runs around, he's a much more capable killer. And it's sort of suggesting that he's had his slow phase, he walked around for ages, he got killed, he got resurrected, he got killed, he got resurrected, and now he's got all this experience and he's just this brutal machine. I quite like that. On to the next part. Ari Lemon. Okay, so this man is an actor. He's a rock star now, he's in a punk band. I don't know if they've ever done particularly well. However, he is famous in the Friday 13th community because he is the first person to play young Jason. He plays Jason in parts 1 or 2? One of them. I think it's 1. God, I've watched these films like 3, at least 3 times each, some of them more, and I just cannot remember like which is in which. It is so similar to each other. Ari Lemon plays young Jason in one of the first Friday 13th films. Kind of shows him, he's all disfigured. The actual guy isn't that disfigured, he just had a lot of prosthetics on. And then he has gone ahead and played Jason in that film. He didn't really do much else. I think he voiced some characters in other things, other horror films. But he's in like a punk rock band now. Good for him. He's still Friday 13th royalty. I don't think there's much more to that. Next up we have Elias is in the part 6 extended ending. Yeah, I referenced this earlier when I was talking about the extended, deleted, or alternative scenes from part 3. Basically, Elias was in the extended part. At the end, I think I also talked about this earlier, where I believe he talks about how he funded the Jason's burial. No, see, I've never been able to see this scene again. They're all kind of lost, and all we have is what the writers have said about it. But he probably just rocks up and is like, "Hello, I'm the stepdaddy. Bye bye." I don't think he was a good person. As I've talked about before, he definitely wasn't a good man. So I can't imagine that his scene was particularly nice. But yeah, I'm curious about that actually. I might look into that more later. But next up we have Jason is a Deadite. Ooh, now we're getting into the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory section. I mean, admittedly, Friday 13th 2009 being a sequel is one of those objectively not canon theories. However, Jason is a Deadite is quite an interesting one. So a Deadite, if you don't know, is something that comes from the Evil Dead universe, right? Where Ash is from. You know, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. Ash is from the Evil Dead universe. And Deadites are these demonic kind of parasitic entities. I'm not a big, like, you know, I'm not big in the Evil Dead world. I like the films, but I haven't watched them many times. And Jason may well be one of these Deadites, because what these Deadites do is they can feed off like living beings. I think it can be anything like a plant or a human, living beings' souls and their matter by possessing them and turning them into these gross, gooey creature things. And the most convincing thing for Jason being a Deadite is the entire film that is Friday 13th Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. The reason for that is that Jason in that film is hardly there. It's really weird. So he gets killed by like the FBI, and then the mortician eats his heart for some reason. He just sees Jason's beating heart and is like, oh, yum yum, and just takes an absolute like chunk out of it with his teeth, eats it, gets possessed, starts killing people, and then when Jason like moves into another person's body, the guy like melts and becomes that sticky, gooey mess. It's a really cool practical effect, and that is by far my least favourite film, so high praises, right? It's a really cool part of what I think is honestly the worst film in the franchise. But yeah, this theory is essentially based on the fact that the Necronomicon from, is it Necronomicon? It was up here somewhere. The Necronomicon, I'm going to call it, was seen in this film, and the creator, I believe, has said that he did actually want to have Jason be a Deadite. He really wanted to link these worlds, but I'm quite glad they didn't. And it's the reason that I don't believe this theory, is that I don't want him to be a Deadite. You know, I don't want that for my boy Jason. I want him to be his own freaky, undead, super monster man who totally kills dogs creature. And I want him to have his own thing. So Jason being a Deadite, you know, that's not really my favourite theory. However, it does have a lot of backing to it. The whole of the Part 9 film kind of makes it clear that something's going on with him. I mean, God, that film is weird. Probably the biggest criticism of it that I see a lot, and by far like the most deserved, is that it feels like there's been 3 films in between Part 8 and Part 9 that you just haven't seen. You watch Part 9 and you're like, wait, what? There's so much exposition and lore that it just throws on you, and it will never mention again, by the way. It doesn't mention it in bloody Part 10, 11, 12. Like, it just goes on. For example, it's like, you know, here's this sacred dagger that can kill Jason. Okay, weird. And it can only be wielded and it will only kill Jason if it's wielded by like a relative. Okay, weird. Why? Why is this a thing? And why did it not like say it in the previous films? I don't know who wrote that film. I don't know exactly who wrote it, but I have no idea what they were on, because they just throw so many things at you that have nothing to do with the previous films. And so no wonder people were like left all over the place. It also takes itself way too seriously. God, I do not like that film. Tangent complete. Tangent complete. New Line Cinema era is the next one, and this just refers to the era that New Line Cinema bought Friday 13th. And I don't believe that they own it anymore, but essentially Part 8 comes out, Jason Goes to Manhattan. You might remember I mentioned the director, Sean Cunningham. He really does not like Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, Part 6, all those, right? Up to Part 8, you know, it tanks, essentially. Part 8 really did not do well. And Paramount, who owned it at the time, was like, alright, well, we're not making money with this, but we can't just end it because, you know, they're American. And you can't, Americans don't end franchises, they keep them going. You gotta suck the blood out of the franchise. You gotta drain it, just rinse it until the fans are just sad and I love America. Yeah, so Paramount is like, we need to offload this. Does anyone want it? And New Line Cinema is like, yeah, we'll take it. And honestly, it's probably one of the worst things objectively that happened to the franchise is New Line Cinema taking it. They're not good films. I still like them. But New Line Cinema, they bring back Sean Cunningham, who's like, oh yeah, now we're talking. Now I'm back to really make my mark, really make Friday the 13th great again. And he makes part 9, the worst part. And then he makes Jason X, which is like, I like it, but it's also really bad. And he also is like, oh yeah, we need like a Freddy versus Jason. In fact, I don't actually think he made like Jason X. I think that might have been in, other people, but he makes Freddy versus Jason, and that ain't good either. Or at least he co-makes it, co-produces. And yeah, it's a weird era. It's the wacky era, you know. New Line Cinema owning it led to Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Goes to Space, which is what I like to call Jason X. 2009 remake, which again I really like that one, but hey, I don't think it did too well. I don't know. Like, look, New Line Cinema. I appreciate that they bought it, but hey, look, the films could potentially be better. The next thing is that Friday the 13th, the game, hints that Halloween, Shocker, and Hatchet are in the same universe. Yeah, it does. I don't like this one, so I'm gonna move on very quickly. There's some little Easter eggs in there. I don't mind that the Halloween happening in the same universe, but Shocker and Hatchet, they're not really my style, and I'm hoping that is not pursued. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about that one. Tommy is being terrorized by Freddy Krueger in one of the tapes from the game. Yeah, I don't really play the game much. I'm sure you might be able to tell, but I have seen the tapes, and they are quite fun. I do quite like them. I think that this is a bit misleading. I'm not convinced that one of the tapes shows this, because I don't remember that, but that was years ago, so this could be completely wrong. What I do remember is that it makes a reference that Tommy went to the psychiatric hospital that is shown in Nightmare on Elm Street, which kind of connects the universes, as if they needed any more connecting. They are very firmly connected at this point. Canonically, Freddy has fought Jason twice now, and you know, now there's this idea that Tommy is being terrorized by Freddy Krueger, and you know, this does raise a lot of questions, right? Like maybe one of my favorite theories that I honestly can't remember if I've already talked about this, but it might actually be further down. Essentially, one of my favorite theories is that all the films after Part 5 are in Tommy's mind, right? Now, I normally hate those theories, right? Harry Potter's still under the... Shut the fuck up, right? I hate them. It makes it so boring. Anyway, I'm not going to go on that tangent again. The point I'm trying to make is that this one is actually somewhat interesting. Somewhat, you know, I still don't believe it. I still think it's a little bit boring. But it's got more credibility, right? It gives you 5 films of fun stuff, and then is essentially saying that Tommy is so traumatized that he is having these visions, and he imagines up part 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, space, hell, you know, all sorts. And one part of that theory is that potentially he's at that psychiatric hospital again, and it's Freddy, who's terrorizing him. pretending to be Jason and making him live through these sort of nightmares. You might then wonder, well, why isn't he in part 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and the remake? But hey, I don't make the rules, okay? This is just a theory. I didn't make the theory. I've made other theories, but not that one. Alright, that's it for that tier. We are moving now on to the, let's scroll up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, it's getting a bit murky now. A little bit further down the iceberg. Into the depths. Alright, well, I will get right back to you on this one after a little break. I just wasted 5 bloody minutes talking, realizing that my headset wasn't plugged in. So, you know, if you think that the sound quality is bad now, just you wait. If any of this, the audio of me talking without a headset gets into the video, then dear God. Alright, Dick Warlock dressed as Michael Myers in Halloween 2 during shooting of Part 5. Yeah, so Dick Warlock, he plays Michael Myers in Halloween 2, and I don't even think that these films were filming at the same time, but the guy, you know, of course he's a fan of Friday the 13th, he turns up decked out as Michael Myers, he's got the dungarees, he's got the mask, he's got the knife, and he takes some photos. Fun times. Pretty clear cut one, that one. Just as a side note, why don't I know oh, of course, I was looking at what this is, this little symbol in the on the right, and I was like, what the fuck is? It's just a bottle opener. When I was looking at it, for some reason, it looks so different. Yeah, well, that's a murder weapon. Yeah, where was I? Dick Warlock. Yeah, fun times, fun times, fun times. Next is Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, and Jason Voorhees. Group photo. Right, this will be referring to 1988. You've got Leatherface. The actor, I don't remember. He was filming Texas Chainsaw Part 2 at that time. This is all in the same year. Freddy Krueger, played by Robert Englund, he would have been filming Dream Warriors, Dream Masters. Michael Myers, that would have been Halloween Part 4. Again, I think Tom something maybe. Don't quite remember who the actor is there. And Jason Voorhees, at this point, it will be Friday the 13th, A New Blood. That's Part 7. He'll be being played by Kane Hodder. They all got brought together by People's Magazine. You know, this back in my day, you know, the internet, we didn't have it. It was all just forums at that point. So the main media we had was magazines. Yeah, we liked magazines. And yeah, so basically it was quite a big deal. People's Magazine, very mainstream, had these 4 actors all dressed up, take a group photo that I would love as a poster, all together on a magazine, and it was mainly just to kind of talk about how all the slashers are getting hyped up, and it was the golden age of slasher films. Bloody good year again, I think the tagline was. And yeah, on to the next one. NES Pamela Boss. NES game, talked about it earlier. Never played it, bit before my time. I was more of a PS3 kid. The NES game had a boss, though. It was Pamela. I'm told she was quite difficult. I don't know why I know that, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of how those old games wasn't it? They were, they would always be like just so hard. I had a lot of older games because I have a lot of older siblings, so I used to play the old games that they had, and there was always like, and you know what I love about being like a kid, thinking back, being a kid and playing games, if you couldn't do it, it wasn't the game's fault, you just went, man, I suck, I'm just not good enough, and just accepted it. Whereas today, if I couldn't finish a game because part of it was too hard, I'd be like, oh, this is a bad game, this sucks ass, this shouldn't be this hard. Rewind, yeah, NES game difficult, all games were. Moving on. Part 6, Jason is actually Roy Burns. Yeah, this one's weird. This is a weird little theory that I've read about. The theory goes that whoever buried Jason or was actually burying Roy Burns, but assumed that Roy Burns was Jason because, of course, Roy Burns dies at the end of part 5 after imitating Jason. And the theory goes that whoever buried them just got the body and was like, okay, well, I heard about Jason Voorhees killing people. This guy looks like him. Put him in the ground as Jason Voorhees. The only evidence that makes this theory compelling is that essentially when Jason comes back, when he's reanimated and now he's like a zombie boy, he's a lot more intelligent. He kind of knows how to do things. He knows how to navigate a city. He knows how, in part 8, he knows how to do all this weird... Oh, God, I hate part 9. But yeah, he knows how to do all this weird stuff in part 9. And also his face isn't like very deformed. I mean, it's messed up. It's all undead, but it's not quite as deformed as it was in the previous films before before Jason got killed in part 4. So that's kind of that's what the theory hinges on, right? That he looks a lot more human, like an undead human, rather than an undead disfigured elephant man, who is also a human. Let's not forget. And it's quite sad, but sad. I'm thinking about the elephant man. That's why I said sad. But yeah, this theory it's not true. I think another like quote unquote evidence that it hinges on is that a police chief in maybe part 5 or 4 is like, nah, we cremated Jason. But again, that kind of gets debunked when you look at the deleted scenes of part 3. Not part 3, part 6. When you look at those deleted scenes, when you look at a bunch of behind the scenes footage, you find out that Jason's dad paid for Jason to have a burial instead of cremation. So it is not true that Jason was cremated, and therefore it is more likely that the Jason that was reanimated was Jason. Another reason as well is that it kind of just doesn't make sense for it to be Roy Burns, because if it's Roy Burns, then it's Roy Burns for the rest of the films, and Jason X and what do you call it, Freddy versus Jason. Yeah, like Freddy's gonna know if it's not Jason, because it just doesn't make sense, unfortunately, because in Freddy versus Jason, which is canon, I'm pretty sure, Freddy kind of finds Jason's fears. Oh my God. We're going to talk about the water fear later. Did I mention it earlier? I probably did. Let's have a little refresher, okay? Jason swims like onto a boat in part 8. Frequently comes out of the water. He's a swamp boy half the time. Okay. Let's get into that later. I'm going to stop myself before I go on a whole rant. Fucking Jason's afraid of water, my ass. Right. In Freddy vs. Jason, though, he like finds out Jason's fears and kind of turns him back into a little gross swamp boy, and that's it. That's all you really need to know, that's not Roy Burns. So Roy Burns is not Jason in part 6. However, it is a fun theory. It is, something that happens when you leave a fandom without a film too long. A bit like those poor Game of Thrones fans who are still waiting on their book. Essentially, this, I think, is a theory born out of boredom. But yes, the next theory is quite a controversial one because the topic. This is that Roy Burns had unconsensual sex with Pamela. I don't think that the word itself should be avoided, but I don't know if I want there to be video evidence of me saying it. Just because you know how the world is these days. Roy Burns is the guy I've been talking about. Part 5 imitates. So Pamela, I don't like this theory for one. I think it's quite unnecessary. And just to explain what it is, Pamela is said in a later comic, I believe, to have gone to Elias, Jason's stepfather, after she got made pregnant. She didn't actually So Elias isn't actually Jason's father. Elias is his stepfather. In this comic, I believe it also makes out that Elias is very abusive. So Pamela got, made pregnant unconsensually by someone they're never named. She then runs away from this abusive, rapist, basically, and straight into the arms of Roy Burns, who is another abuser. A really tragic situation that does happen too often. And essentially, this theory is that Roy was that rapist, and that I don't quite know why this is a theory. Just because it doesn't, it doesn't really change anything. Like, the idea then, I suppose, is that that's why Roy dresses up as Jason, right? Because he's weird. God, he's just really weird. It's just a really weird theory. I don't think it's true. I think we'll move on. Texas Chainsaw Massacre plays on the TV in the mental hospital in Freddy versus Jason. Yeah, it does. It's a fun little it's a fun little Easter egg. I quite like these ones that are quite low down, so they're like a niche thing, but they're also really like simple. Like, I don't need to explain this. This is just a little Easter egg that happens in Freddy vs. Jason. That's it. That's all you need to know. Harry Manfredini, composer of the first Friday the 13th, composed a lot of the scores for the franchise, but also a talking cat. Yeah, this is another one that is pretty easy to explain. So Harry Manfredini, he's really kind of horror royalty because of his participation in Friday the 13th. He's the one who says that it's ki 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 ma ma ma, not chi chi chi, right? Which I didn't mention this at the time, but I kind of think that's bullshit. Like, he's like, oh yeah, it's got this thought behind it. It's ki 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 ma ma ma, cause kill 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 ma ma mum. But it does not sound like it. Like go back to the original and listen to it. That's not right. I don't think it is. I think it's so I'm just not convinced, really. But we'll see. I say we'll see. There's no more evidence to be had. And most people agree that it is ki 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 ma ma ma. So I'm gonna stop saying it now and assume I'm just gonna go with it and say sure. Anyway, what this is saying is that, yeah, he's this respected composer in the horror world, but he also scored some silly comedy from, I don't know, 2012, 2013. And yeah, he did. I don't really think there's much to it. I mean, look, either he just wanted to have some fun, or it was a decent paycheck. Like, look, I'm not going to judge the guy. I don't know how much composers make these days. So, a talking cat. I don't know. Hold on. That's an exclamation mark and a question mark. So it's like a talking cat? Yeah, there you go. I've not watched that film, I'm afraid. I can't give you a rundown, but hey, if you want to, I'm sure it has an amazing score because Harry Manfredini did it. Next up, Friday the 13th, The Computer Game. And this is called Friday the 13th, The Computer Game, as far as I can tell. Once again, a little bit before my time, just a bit. Hold on, hey, no, don't get too head up. It's alright, just a little before my time. Very digital game. I don't know how else to describe it. It's one that, like, you can, like, count the pixels, and the music in it is like the most stereotypical scary music. I like it. It looks fun, although it also looks objectively terrible. So I don't think it was very well received critically, just because I believe that that it was seen as a bit of a cash grab, Jason and everything about Friday the 13th, nothing really linked in. I couldn't tell you when this game came out, probably late 80s, probably, maybe early 90s. But the premise is pretty simple. You walk around, you try and stop your mates getting killed, you try to kill Jason. That makes it sound a lot better than it is. I don't know if I'm gonna put an image up even. Just imagine like pixels on a screen, and then that's it. Next up is 13 Fanboy. This is a film, not by a fanboy, although kind of. This is a film directed by Deborah Voorhees. If that name's familiar, it's because it's the boy, it's Jason Voorhees, that's his name. And genuinely coincidentally, this woman, Deborah Voorhees, was born with the same last name. She grows up, and I don't know why I have this knowledge of this woman, but I'm told, it says on her Wikipedia, I believe, that she was a Playboy bunny, and then she's thinking, alright, I want to get into, like, acting. And so she plays, who does she play? She plays someone in part 5, I think. Yeah. I think that Deborah Voorhees plays someone in part 5, and she got into the interview, she got to interview stage because she was like, hey, my name's the same, and people were like, hey, that's fun. Ba-ba-ba-de-boobity. So ba-ba-ba-de-boobity, she becomes an actor, and now she is older, and she thought, hey, Friday 13th, I think this film came out in 2021, so this is in the middle of, like, the lawsuit I mentioned earlier, and she's thinking, alright, I can't make a Friday 13th film, but I can make one akin to it. And so she makes 13 Fanboy, and it's a film about a fanboy of these slashers, right? Especially Friday 13th, who is now hunting down people who were in those films, actors. And it is quite a fun film. I quite like it. It's not good, alright? Not a lot of people like it. It's got quite bad reviews, but, all the Friday 13th films have bad reviews. I like them, and this one I like too. It's got Kane Hodder in. It's got, can't remember his first name, it's something Latey. And that man is the guy who made Never Hike Alone, which I don't think is, surprisingly, I don't think that it's on here. So I'm going to talk about that now, right after. So 13 Fanboy, it's just this kind of, it's a film, and it's got a lot of the old actors, a lot of random actors, not too major, but people from all sorts of films, all sorts of Friday 13th films. Kane Hodder's the best, because it's Kane Hodder, and this guy goes around trying to kill him. Fun times. It can't have anything to do with Friday 13th, because legal reasons, but yeah, that's it. Now, just before the next one, I'm going to talk about Never Hike Alone, because that, either I have talked about it already and I'm getting a little bit of amnesia, or it's not on here, which is crazy to me. But hey, I made a chess iceberg, and in hindsight, I missed a lot of things off that. So, oh no, it's there. Aha! I must have talked about it then. Yeah, I think I did. Well, that's concerning that I don't remember that. On to the next one. The only reason I bring it up is that the guy who's in that is in 13 Fanboy, which honestly must have been an honor. I would love that. Hey, any future Friday 13th film makers, when this video gets 1 million views and everyone who watches horror films watches it, you keep me in mind. Give me an email. Give me a little YouTube comment. Yeah. Next up is Friday the 13th remake sequel. Yeah, this is just sad. This breaks the heart of every Friday 13th fan. All it is that the Friday 13th 2009 remake was meant to have a sequel. It was meant to come out in 2017. At this point, Friday the 13th is owned by Paramount again, right? So New Line owned it. I think New Line released the 2009 remake, but then New Line was like, alright, well, I mean, that didn't do that well, so no point in continuing, which is really unfortunate. But then Paramount was like, hey, we might want to, make another. So New Line's like, alright, well, here you go, kid, try again. Gives them the rights, and Paramount is like, alright, awesome, well, we'll make a sequel to Rings. When they do the pluralization, I love it when they do that. When it's a horror franchise and they're just like, what if it's multiple? So you got Alien and then Aliens, you got Ring and now it's Rings, and I can't think of others straight away, but there are definitely other examples. In this case, it is Ring being made into Rings, and it didn't do well. It didn't do well at all. So all of you bastards who didn't go to see Rings in cinema, do you know what you've gone and done? You've gone and stopped a sequel. You've gone and stopped that Friday 13th film. Because Paramount saw that it didn't do well and thought, alright, well clearly people don't like, this entirely different fucking genre. Not quite a genre, sub-genre, I should say. It is a different sub-genre. They're like, alright, we're going to make a sequel to this film, but Rings didn't do well, so let's just cancel. It makes me so sad. Yeah, anyway, nothing I can do about it now. The hope is that once this legal dispute is settled, another film will be made, because first off, if it wasn't, then why the fuck are you disputing the legal rights? Just get it over with. And if it also Halloween did really well, so you might have seen the reboots of Halloween. You had Halloween, just Halloween, and then Halloween Kills, and I'm told that one did really well. I don't think it, I went to see it. It wasn't. I didn't think it was brilliant, but I did enjoy it. I did have a fun time. So at the end of the day, it did what it was meant to, and it was good. Yeah. So that was that, and that means that hopefully they're looking at that and thinking, okay, well, Rings didn't do well, but this slasher did do well, and Friday the 13th is a slasher, so yeah, that's where we're at with that. And I'm really hoping that is what happens. I'm really hoping it works, because if it doesn't, then I'm a sad boy. Sad boy, sad boys, what are you gonna do? Next up is the next one down, the next tier. I have a feeling I'm gonna be doing like a little interlude between each one to make the video seem a little bit more fancy, a little bit fancy. So you know what? I'll see you guys after the break.